So today we're back, we're in the shop, we're working on another Jeep, but this time we're not working on my own Jeep. This is actually Charlie's. We're going to be doing something a little bit different today. We're going to actually be clocking the transfer case itself to gain a little bit more belly clearance. We're hoping to get this end up another inch, inch and a half, maybe even 2 inches, just so we can get a nice flat belly clearance across that whole line there. So as you guys can see, right now, we don't exactly have enough clearance in order to get this as a completely flat unit. So if we wanted to, for example, make a skid plate or something that was armoring this transfer case and extend back towards that rear subframe, it'd be really challenging right now and we'd be losing a lot of ground clearance. And where we wheel, that's not okay with us. So what we're gonna do today is we're actually gonna be installing our transfer case clocking ring. And on this one, we've got a couple different adjustment levels so you can move it up or down wherever you need to make it fit. And that should give you enough adjustment in order to get that transfer case up another inch or two. So we're going to be dropping out this subframe first, and when you're dropping out that subframe, you're going to want to make sure that you've got the transmission supported. You can do this with the jack. Today we're going to be using a transmission jack because we're using the hoist, and that'll work in order to keep this thing supported while we drop this cross member so we can get a little more room to work on these top bolts. So now that we've got those bolts undone from the cross member here, we're going to drop this down just about 3-4 inches so we can get a little more room to work on those top bolts of the transfer case. And you don't want to go too far during this because you will put a bunch of additional strain in your motor mounts. So we're looking for just enough to get a wrench in there so we can keep working today. So since the last time we had the camera on, we did drop the cross member just to get a little bit more room to work, and we're actually going to be taking this motor mount down too. There's 2 more bolts that are stuck behind here that'll mount the transfer case, and taking this one down will definitely get you a little bit more room to work in there, make it a bit easier for you. We're going to take this shift cable bracket down too, just get a little more room to work. There's a couple bolts behind there. We can get the wrench on that, but it's not going to be able to come out if we've got this fully mounted. You're either going to see something amazing or awful. 50-50. Oh.
Made sure to disconnect the breather hose, right?
Yep, we got that one done on the first try. That's something that can easily be forgotten, so watch out for that. Oh, jeez. Are we barfing out the other end now? Probably.
Whoops.
We'll save it before it goes off the table.
Also, that's the wrong fluid, but it's Charlie's Jeep.
Yeah, that doesn't smell right. So we've got the transfer case pulled out on the bench. This is going to be an NP247. This is one of the most common transfer cases across all of the different WJ model years. If you've got a WJ, it's a V8 4-wheel drive, it's almost guaranteed that you've got this one. If you've got a Dana 35 rear axle, it's more likely that you've got a 242 in there. So today we're just going to be working on the 247 and explaining the clock with that one. We've got one of these studs out. It came out when we were uninstalling it. We do need to get the other 5 studs out in order to continue with this transfer case clocking ring kit. And if you're not familiar with the trick that we're going to use here, it's going to be the double nut trick. So we'll take one of the nuts, we'll run that one down onto the stud. Take one of our other nuts, we're just going to run it backwards so we can keep the friction there and make sure these stay nice and tight, and we can get that stud uninstalled. So cinch those 2 nuts together, and then go ahead and spin out your stud. And we're going to do that with all the 5 studs, and we'll see you right back here when we're done. So we got all the studs out of the transfer case itself, and we've been working on getting them installed into the ring here. It's certainly kind of a challenge to get these ones installed, and we're going to go in the same way that they came out of the transfer case. We're going to double nut these, and we're going to thread them in to the clocking ring. And when you're threading them in, you want to make sure that they're not going to be sticking out here on the back side. Just using your finger, you should be able to get a pretty good idea of whether or not they're poking out of the back. These are going to sit flush up against this aluminum ring here on the transfer case. So we want to make sure those are not extending past the back of the clocking ring. When you're installing this clocking ring onto the transfer case itself, it does only go on one way. In order to get all 6 of these bolt holes to line up, we've pre-marked it here so we can determine where it goes. We'll get the rest of the studs put in here, bolt this onto the transfer case, and then we'll meet you back at the vehicle. So we've got this one fully bolted onto the transfer case. Next, we're going to talk about our little seal housing here. This is going to be a seal housing extension. Since this one does end up spacing out the transfer case just a little bit, this is going to match that spacing so we can get that seal here, which rides on this surface right here of your input shaft, your transfer case. We're going to make sure that seal is spaced out accurately. So we've got this one sealed up, and you're not going to be leaking any transmission fluid inside there. We've elected to select the second highest for the clocking ring options here. We just want to make sure that we're not able to, we don't have to dent the floor in order to clearance for the transfer case currently. Just a little bit of a test here, see how much we get. We'll give measurements at the end of the video so we can see how much this one turned up. So when you're installing this seal extension, there is a seal in here in the transfer case by default. That one will need to come out. So I'm just going to grab a pry bar here and quickly work this seal out of place. Installing this, the seal is a press fit here. This is also going to be a direct press fit into the transmission itself. So what we're going to do here ahead of time is we're going to go ahead and pound this seal in. And we're going to apply a little bitty bead of RTV silicone around the outside here to make sure that it nice and stays sealed for you. We don't need a lot here. Just need enough in order to keep that seal nice and tight in there. That's plenty. RTV applies best to a clean, dry surface. And we've got that seal surface all cleaned up. We're gonna go ahead and start sliding this one on. We'll just tap on these. We'll get this one sent home. So we got this transfer case bolted back up in here nearly. When we did bring this one back up, we did have to twist this front output shaft just so we could align that main input shaft for the transfer case. The splines sometimes get a little bit off, so giving this a little bit of a wiggle should make it a little bit easier when you're installing this transfer case. So we're gonna go ahead and grab the bolts, put this one back together, and then we'll get it back and take a measurement and see how much ground clearance we gained by clocking the transfer case up. So we've got the transfer case back in the vehicle. We've got it all bolted up. You can take a look at the clocking ring right there. There's 2 different options on this clocking ring. We've got 8.7 degrees and 15.8 degrees. As you can see, we've chosen that halfway mark there. And instead of touching here, we've got a lot of clearance. We've got plenty of room in here if you wanted to do a flat belly kit, make some sort of skid plate or subframe that'll work between these 2 cross members. But beyond that, we were able to gain exactly 1 inch of belly clearance by clocking that 8.7 degrees. And this is a pretty darn good modification. It's gonna make hitting things with this transfer case a lot less likely out on the trail. We've had it installed, we took it back apart. We gotta check out what that 15.8 degree mark is gonna get us and give you guys a measurement for that one. And for that, we already mocked it up there. We're gonna need to do a little massaging to make it fit. We got it marked out here on the frame. Just use the transfer case itself to mark it out. We're gonna dent mostly up in this section, potentially a little bit up here. We'll do a little bit of test fitting, but for now, we're gonna make this a little more room. So we've got the transfer case. We've got it bolted back in there. We went to the highest notch, which is that 15.8 degree turn, and we got another inch of clearance on the belly here. So the first notch is going to be 1 inch transfer case clock at the lowest point. The second notch is going to be at 2nd inch. So get you 2 inches of belly clearance there, so you can do a lot of different work with that. And keep in mind, when you are turning this up, you are going to be raising this front output yoke of your transfer case. And for that, we definitely recommend switching over to a high pinion axle. Charlie's got this low pinion axle, so we're going to go back. We're going to move it to that 2nd degree mark. And we're going to get this at that 1 inch left so he can do that flat belly clearance on here. So with the square up there, you can see we've got a ton of room between there. And then if we go off of the frame rail, we're not completely flat on the frame rail, but we're certainly well above the cross member. This one, it looks really good. I think Charlie's gonna be ecstatic with it. We've got a perfectly good clearance here, and it's gonna keep him from damaging this transfer case, beating it up over rocks. You can check out this clocking ring, and we got a whole bunch of other WJ products. If you wanna check them out, ironrockoffroad.com. Thank you.